But doesn't China have some sort of extreme power over the U.S. by controlling companies like Apple or Samsung or the NBA?
They're trying.
Like if there's all of these major corporations in the U.S. that are so tied into government and so tied in, like our economy is so dependent on, and China has tons of influence over those companies, wouldn't that be an indirect way of influence and power over us through China?
It's a useless way of influence. Yeah, because what's China going to do? So let's say that China has total control over Apple.
Well, they could potentially have access to all of our information.
They have potential to all the information if you use Apple.
Right.
That's it. That's all they have. What kind of
or social media apps like TikTok?
What kind of chess piece is that? Oh, great! You can now look in the pocket of every ignorant 22-year-old around the country. What's the point? What's the value? There's no strategic value there, man. Like China's grasping at a world that is distractible, and they want to suck up every bit of information they can. Right? That's a strategy that they're pursuing. Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard of the pricing strategy in business? Mm-hmm. There's two pricing strategies in business. You can either price yourself so that you are the lowest priced competitor,
right?
Or you can price yourself so you're the highest priced competitor. Everything in the middle is not an advantage. The person with the cheapest price is going to get the most customers. The person with the highest price is going to have customers that pay the most, and they might get the most top line revenue. If you're the idiot that prices the same product somewhere in the middle, then you've lost both advantages.
Either have millions of readers or readers with millions.
Exactly.
I think there's a magazine that uses that quote.
Yeah, it's a great quote. So China is essentially in the bargain basement part of the world. America is in the highest value proposition of the world. We want to create the most impactful, most powerful stuff. We want to empower Silicon Valley and Boeing and Raytheon to create stuff that the world has never seen before. We don't really care about plastic trinkets. We don't really care about TikTok.
Right, but when it comes down, when you're asking what's the value of having control over information and having having access to information such as stuff from TikTok,
yep.
Having the mind control of every 20-year-old in our country, well, there's the psychological aspect of it, right? There's the war of ideas. There's weaponizing of ideas and thoughts and psychology. Mm-hmm.
There is.
And that's a huge thing. I mean, that's like you think when you think of wars or whatever, and you think of dropping bombs or bullets. You know, the psychological aspect of it, or the
hearts and minds,
ideas, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But you've got to think about influence is not equal for all people. We've had this conversation before too, where we talk about equal and fair, right? If every broke-ass 20-year-old in the United States who's recording themselves on TikTok, picking their nose or pouring beer on their girlfriend's head, if every one of them is suddenly fully mind-controlled by China, what advantage is that for China? They're going to get, a bunch of poor, broke-ass 20-year-olds to go out there and, protest? The decisions in America are made by the top 2% of people. You know what that top 2% of people do not use? TikTok. Think about it, man. I intentionally don't advertise on a platform like TikTok because my multi-million-dollar clients are not there.
They might not be able to change decisions made by the top 2%, but they could seed chaos.
Who cares? Of course, chaos
isn't that what Russia and China want to see in the U.S.? Is chaos?
Yeah, but they want to see it. They want to see chaos at a real level. They don't want to see chaos. They want to see chaos happen in groups that already exist. So there's an Intel principle called the piggyback principle. I don't know if I've ever talked about this. So the piggyback principle is that when you're creating an influence campaign against another country, you never try to create something new. You don't go in and try to create a new organization that doesn't like Catholic nuns. It doesn't make any sense. It's expensive, it's slow, it may not work. You never create a new issue. You find an existing point of conflict, and then you pour resources into the existing point of conflict. That's what you do. So you find Americans that hate Muslims, and then you fund the group that says America against Muslims, and then you also fund the group that says Muslim rights in America. So you start to pour resources into both extremes.
Those are called psyops, right? When they do that, when there'll be a protest on a corner of a street, and then all of a sudden there'll be a conflict group on the other side of the street. So in certain parts of the world, like when they organize on social media.
Yeah. So psyops is a military term for psychological operations that is more complicated than just that. But but essentially what you're talking about is the kind of pointy end of the spear. When an influence or a deception campaign is successful in funding both ends of a group, they can do things like, hey, let's send the people who want to protest the abuse of animals at SeaWorld, let's send them on a protest on the same day as the people who think that SeaWorld should be free to like all future generations of children. Let's get them to protest on the same day in the same place. That is an influence campaign. If the military were to do it, the PSYOP, the psychological operation, would come before the influence campaign, because the psychological operation would be there to kind of pave the way for the arguments, right? Let's give people more information. Let's give people more context. A lot of what you see here, like this kind of headline is closer to a psychological operation than it is to an influence campaign, because an influence campaign is there to create an outcome. A psychological operation is there to create a new way of thinking, or to cement or underscore an existing way of thinking. One is action-based, one is cognitive-based.
What are you familiar with China's, I think it's the 2049 plan to become the dominant global superpower?
Correct, yep. 2049.
Can you expand on that?
It's
or explain what it is?
Yeah, so Xi Jinping is a very methodical, strong cult of personality, right? And he has done an excellent job, I think, of bringing the Chinese Communist Party into line with a singular vision. And he laid out his 2049 plan of how China was going to become the new global superpower, because they'd be replacing the United States. Why would they replace the United States in 2049? Because they haven't replaced us yet. You see what I'm saying? So he laid out this plan. That plan included all sorts of things. The most important thing, I think, to keep aware of is that included the taking Taiwan and making it China again, right? All of this drama about Ukraine, what this is a giant, dress rehearsal for what China's going to do in Taiwan. That's why China. You know who's backing Russia in the UN?
Who?
China.
Are they really?
Yep. Do you know the whole UN, all the permanent members in the UN wanted to keep this topic, the Russia-Ukraine crisis, wanted to keep it a public conversation so that they could use public pressure and they could use the UN as a way of maintaining peace in Ukraine. Russia wanted it to be a closed-door conversation, only for diplomats, only for people immediately involved. They would have the only person, the only country in all of the UN that supported Russia's decision, Russia's movement to make it a private conversation instead of a public conversation, was China. Do you know who just came out today making a statement that it's the U.S.'s fault that Russia invaded Ukraine?
Who?
China. Do you know why the sanctions against Russia aren't going to work? Because China will always be there to move money in and out of Russia. This is the way the world works. It doesn't mean China's a bad guy. It doesn't mean Russia's a bad guy. It doesn't mean America's a bad guy. It means that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Sanctions are going to fail. You know what Russia had on them before they invaded Ukraine? American sanctions. They've been sanctioned since 2014. They've been sanctioned since 2008. Sanctions just don't work because the elite of any country, do you ever worry about rich people finding a way around taxes? Like, will rich people ever pay the full amount of taxes?
Am I ever worried about it? No. I mean, they'll always find a way around.
So what's going to happen when a rich person in a foreign country gets sanctioned?
Right. They'll find a way around it.
But who won't find a way around it? All the poor people,
right,
who
the
suffer.
Citizens.
And then as they suffer, they'll just further believe that the person levying the sanctions is the aggressor. So my point in all of this is that Russia and China are in this together.
Is that not in our best interest to push them closer together?
No, it is not in our best interest to push them closer together.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.